Hi there, everybody. It's Allison. I just wanted to say hi. I just finished recording this Piriformis Practice for you. It was by request, so I hope you really enjoy it, whether you were the one who requested it or not. The idea is that to really build health and kind of mobility and function into this area that tends to cause people a lot of problems, whether it's with sciatica or whether it's with just hip pain or back pain in general, is that first we want to get the area really moving, supply blood flow, get lots of strength and juice, and then we stretch it. So I tried to give you lots of options and variations and modifications to explore. If you have questions or comments or requests for next time, please put the comments below, and I'll see you soon. Enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome to your Piriformis Practice. We are going to get started standing, and we're going to see if we can find a position where we can actually relax a little bit and stay not so tense or gripped in the piriformis. So the way we're going to do this is similar to a practice we do in the sitting video that I made. I'm going to turn this to the side. So you will need a chair. Basically, we're going to have a seat right to the very end of the chair, right on the very ledge. So I'm on purpose not going to sit on the back of the tailbone. We're going to try not to round the spine. We're going to try to get really just on the sitting bones. Okay? Now from here, you're going to bring the weight onto your legs, and as you come up to a stand, imagine that your sitting bones are coming back and up, right? So it's like back and up. And we'll do that again, so you can come down to the chair. Sitting bones, find the chair first, and when you come up, imagine that the first thing that happens is the sitting bones come back, and then they swing underneath you, right? We'll do that a few times. What we're looking for is just a little bit of warmth, a little bit of blood flow to the area at the back of the pelvis. Now on this last round, I'm going to see if you can find a position when you stand where you would be ready to sit again, no problem. Right? So what I mean is, if you were to stand and come into any kind of locked position, right, my pelvis is a bit tucked under, this tends to be part of the reason why we get tight through the piriformis. Right. So one way we can kind of define a healthy posture for the pelvis is, can you sit at any moment? Can you sit without having to unlock anything? So let's try that once again. You can have a seat and then go ahead and stand up and imagine that everything is still pretty relaxed, pretty soft. You would be able to sit again without having to unlock your knees, without having to unlock through your hips. I know this might feel a little weird at first, but this will be something we come back to again and again. Now, once you have that kind of pelvic posture, we're going to see if we can get some more movement and warmth in leg rotation. So for this, if balance is at all a concern to you, you can use the chair, you can use a wall. I'm going to move this around so I can have it as a bit of a kickstand. Okay. And then I'm going to imagine that there's this big kind of half circle around me, and I'm going to trace that half circle with my toes. So I'm going to take my hand, it's my left hand, I'm going to take my left hand to my pelvis, and I'm going to imagine that as I take my leg forward, that there's not a ton of movement through here. Right? So from there, I'm going to, with a straight leg, try to trace this half circle as if through the sand, and I'm going to come as far around and to the back that I can. And hopefully if you're doing this, you can feel some of the activity going on into some of the back side of your glutes, deeper rotator muscles, as you slide the leg out and forward. We're going to do that a few times. So continue with that half circle. And then some refinements. The first is see that you're breathing. It's really not separate from the motion. The second is see that when you're moving your leg, you're really able to move your leg from your leg, that you're not swinging your hips. So this is me moving my leg from my back. And I'm kind of exaggerating it, but you'd be surprised at how sort of habitual that can become. So for our purposes, we're trying to stay pretty centered through the torso and just to move the leg. We're also trying to stay straight through the leg. Right? So the other piece that you might find is this sneaky bend of your knee. So if you're coming around and your knee is bending and you're moving from your knee, that's also not going to get us much in contact with some of those deep muscles. So I know a lot to think about, but let's do one more. This kind of long trace of this half circle in the sand. And then you can release. Notice the difference between sides. Actually, on both sides, you might feel a little warm. We're definitely balancing on the other side. So let's switch, and I'm going to turn so I can face you for this one. So you can see it from a different vantage point. So feel free to use your table, your chair, a wall. You're going to shift the weight to the other foot, and then take your other leg out in front. So it's the same exercise, right? You're tracing this half circle, just like you're dragging it through something really slippery, like sand or ice. Of course, in the Franklin method, we get really good at changing the way we're perceiving what we're doing. So you might even think like, I don't know, butter or something really slippery or slidey, glidey underneath your toes. And check in with all of those pieces that we thought about before. So the leg is straight. Right? We're trying to avoid moving from the waist or from our shoulders or from our backs. Okay. And the other kind of subtle pieces that might make this even more impactful are to check in with the rest of your body and see that you're not gripping a hold of what you're making contact with. The shoulders are light. Right, the hand is light, maybe a little bit bent and relaxed through the standing leg. Let's do that twice more. And of course, breathe, breathe, breathe. And people always ask me, okay, what if I can't do the thing you say, right? What if when you're doing this, you can't figure it out how to move the leg without turning the pelvis? You can start small, right? You can start close in. It doesn't have to be a very extended position. You can start close in and see how much motion you're able to create before eventually you can straighten the leg and really feel the leg moving from the leg. Right? But after that last round, you can come back to center. Piriformis, including all the kind of rotator muscles, are going to be really like full of juice now and a little bit more ready to work with. So I'm going to show you another exercise in a couple different ways. And I know a lot of different people watch these videos, and you might be just starting out, or you might be like doing this for years and years and years. So I want to show you a couple levels and find the place that you're at. So I'm going to set this off to the side. Find a blanket. And we're going to come down to all fours. Okay? So I'm going to show you this first in maybe the most challenging of the position, and then I'll show you it again in maybe a little easier option. So I'm going to come to hands and knees. You can do this however. You can be on your fingers, you can be on your palms, you could be on your knuckles. Right? I'm actually going to turn a little bit so I can show you this. This we're not going to do many of because it's kind of a force right for the rotators, but you're going to keep your left knee bent and you're going to bring the leg back behind you. Again, we're trying to move more from leg than from our back. Then you're going to bring the leg out to the side. This is like a fire hydrant kind of pose. And then you're going to bring the leg down and in. So it's a little bit of a circle. We'll just do a couple more. So it'd be your leg coming back, your leg coming out, and your leg coming down. And of course, breathing, 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 staying lifted out of your shoulders. And you can take a moment there to rest. You might rest into a puppy pose, which is a bit easier on your back and your knees, or of course you can rest into a child's pose. Now we'll switch sides, and you can either come up and, if you're practicing this on all fours, you can do it again on the second side. I'll show you the other option, and this is where we come back to standing. It's kind of like what we just did. Again, you can hang on to something, but you'd keep a little bend to your knee, and you would just rotate it outward, down, and forward. I'll show you that from the side. So you'd rotate it outward, down, which means your foot comes back, and then forward. And we'll do this once more. Same thing if you're on all fours. Again, we're still in the phase of trying to get blood flow and warmth to the whole system of the hip rotators. And lucky us, we have another one that's going to get blood flow. Then we're going to stretch the piriformis. It's going to feel amazing. So for this, again, I'm going to show you in two different ways. I have a bolster here, which if you don't have, you can fashion with just a stack of blankets. It's a little bit cushiony, it's a little bit hard, so if you are using blankets, you'd have to stack several. I'm going to show you this first without, so you can see the shape, and then I'll show you with the bolster. So this is where, it's kind of like a little forearm plank. I'm going to come down onto my side, onto my elbow, my forearm. Right. And of course, as far as the shoulder goes, I'm going to try to lift out of my shoulder a little bit. That's the difference between kind of falling into your shoulder and trying to inflate and sort of lift up. Your top hand can be on the ground as a bit of a kickstand. So first option, which if you've been to physical therapy, you've probably done, is something like this. It's like a clamshell is what they call it. So you're rotating your leg in space, you're rotating it outward. This is still shortening and strengthening the piriformis on the way up, and it's slowly elongating the piriformis on the way down. If you wanted to pair that with a lift, as you lift, you can open through your legs. So you're lifting your hip off the ground. As you lower, you'd bring your knees back together. So your choice, you can stay with the clamshell here, or you can lift up and open. Okay, we're going to do one more on this side, and then I'll show you on the second side with a bolster. So you're lifting out of shoulder, maybe you're lifting hip, maybe you're opening leg, and then coming back down. Now rest between sides. You can rest onto your back, you can rest at a seat. And I'm going to show you on the second side. Now why would we use a bolster? The idea here is that if you're in between being able to lift the bottom hip and to not lift the bottom hip, this makes it so you don't have to lift as much, right? So I'm going to scoot so that my elbow can be on the ground, my feet can be on the ground, and still you could work here. So you could work that clamshell opening and closing. Or you can lift up, and you don't have to lift high. So I'm thinking of lifting my bottom hip. I don't have to lift very high. I also have the benefit of the bottom leg pushing down into the bolster. So this is kind of like both legs get the workout. So your choice. You can be on the ground working clamshell, which is that open and close. You could be on the ground lifting the hips, opening and close, or you could be on the bolster, and then you can be thinking both legs moving outward. My bottom leg is pushing into the bolster. In all of them, see if you can stay a bit lifted out of your shoulder. Let's do one more round. Okay, you can release and rest. And we're going to come into a stretch for the piriformis. Right? Part of why I spent so much time getting it kind of juiced and warmed up is if it's tight. Oftentimes it's tight because it's kind of locked short, right? So it's that position I talked about before where if you're standing with your pelvis a bit kind of tucked under, piriformis gets a bit stuck. So what we've done is hopefully tried to, kind of give it some juice and give it some flow and warm it up. So now when we stretch it, we're not stretching a cold, kind of locked muscle, okay? So this again I'll show you in two different planes. It's one you've probably seen before. I'm going to show you first maybe the easiest version, and then I'll show you on the second side, kind of a notch up. So I'm going to use a chair for this. And I'm going to sit onto the ledge of the chair, again, just at my sitting bones. And then I'm going to cross one leg on top of the other, which might involve, using the help of hands. You would cross your ankle onto the opposite thigh. And then from here, ta-da, this is the stretch. This is it. So you would flex your foot a little bit. Make sure that you're sitting really on the base of the pelvis. And then from the inside, imagine that you could soften the space of the outer hip. Like I'm imagining it's getting really kind of foldable and ironed out. You could stay here. To deepen it, you could either take a hold of your shin and bring it up to you, as long as that doesn't create the rounding or the hunching of your spine. Or, with your ankle still on your thigh, you can start to come forward. Again, as long as that doesn't become rounding or hunching with your spine. So we're just trying to get that release deep, deep, deep into the outer hip. We'll take a few more breaths. And always my suggestion with stretch is, as far as duration goes, is to sense a moment where there's a bit of like a sigh or like a give in that muscle area. If you don't feel like you'll ever find it, you're going too far. If you feel like things are just grabbing on, you're going too far. So if you can come to a spot where you can really breathe and wait for that moment of kind of softening and melt and let go, once you've found that, you can start to unwind. So if you're in the seated version, you can come back up and unwind the leg. If you like the seated variation, stay there and practice it on side 2. I'm going to demonstrate the other option, so the more you watch this video and practice, you can decide, today I want to be at a wall, or today I want to be at a chair. Right? So the second variation is bringing your legs up onto either a wall or like a couch or a chair. So for this, I'm going to get onto the wall. I'm going to be as graceful as possible without losing my microphone. So I'm going to come pretty close to the wall, and I'm going to lay onto my side and turn onto my back. So I start here. And people always ask, how close do I need to be to the wall? Well, you want to be in a place where your pelvis is relaxed. If you feel like you're kind of gripping your belly muscles, you're too close and you'll have to scoot back. Now from here, I'm going to cross my opposite ankle over onto my thigh. I'm going to flex my foot a little bit. And here's the subtlety that will really make all the difference as far as getting really into the piriformis stretch, is allowing the thigh to come forward away from you without letting your pelvis turn. Right? And you'll get more and more used to that in a lot of different yoga poses. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my hip point of the leg that's on top, and I'm going to see if, without it swiveling forward, I can think leg forward. It doesn't move much for me. Right? If I were to let go of that hip point, it would feel like my leg comes forward, but I'm just really stretching into a different area. So just leg forward. You can stay here, or you can then slide your bottom foot down along the wall until you get that level of stretch that allows you in time to feel that dissolve. In either shape, whether you're at the chair, at the floor, see if you can relax through your shoulders. Send breath, breath, breath into the hip. Of course, there's lots of definitions of what a stretched muscle is. Definitely depends on what you're doing. But in a pose like this, where you're pretty supported, the stretched muscle is actually the relaxed muscle. Right? Now Now when you're ready, and if you're not yet ready, you stay where you are, but when you are ready, if you're at the wall, you would straighten out your bottom leg, you would unwind your top leg. And if you're here, what a great opportunity to rest in legs up the wall, which is a wonderful variation of Shavasana. If you're at the chair, right, you can stay there or you can make your way up. When you eventually transition from being legs up the wall, you roll to your side and press the floor away and come up. So that was our Piriformis practice. We had a lot of heat and warmth and strength. We only had one stretch, but I think that that's kind of a nice balance and a nice recipe to keep things really pliable and mobile and flexible for you throughout your day. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to continue on about your video watching practice, or you can take a rest in a Shavasana. But I appreciate you trying this out. I wish you a very happy Piriformis. Namaste.